Well, hi everyone. Hold on, this doesn't feel right at all. That's better. Well, hi everyone. Hope you're all doing okay and welcome back to the channel. Now today I want to discuss eyesores. And eyesores can mean different things to different people. What seems ugly to one person is maybe of great beauty to another. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as they say. So for me, I've always embraced the so-called eyesores, the typical examples of such things. But then, for me, just so you can see where I'm coming from, this to me is an eyesore. This is the biggest mistake to be put into a photo. Come on, green skies? Are you serious? The compositions of these aurora captures are all wrong too. So you of course may love this natural wonder, dream of photographing it one day even. All well and good then. But all around us in more everyday life are more traditional eyesores. Power stations, telegraph poles, electricity pylons, all so-called blots on the landscape. Things to ruin our landscape captures. But if you're a master of the cloning tool in Photoshop, however, then perhaps nothing to worry about, of course, just get rid of them. But to anyone else, it either means looking elsewhere or do as I do, embrace these so-called ugly subjects. If you're photographing the landscape, the natural landscape, Mother Nature's landscape, then of course you may not want any evidence of man within this view. You may be photographing amazing mountains that have been sculptured over millions of years, undulating landscapes that have remained untouched for thousands of years. Natural beauty in its purest form then. And thankfully we can still find those kind of subjects. With planning laws and respect for the countryside, our world is naturally a beautiful place. However, it's not like that everywhere, of course. We have, as a mankind, taken over some parts of this world and added supplies and a national grid. It's what keeps our houses heated and lit and allow these YouTube videos to be watched. You may be one of these photographers that avoids these at all costs then. You do your best to exclude them from your compositions in the same way you would do with any other clutter or distraction that can ruin a perfectly good composition in the rule of thirds. But are you actually removing elements that can add value to a view? If you're aware of the basics of composition, then you'll know that many pictures rely on shape, form and lines to make effective compositions. Well, if you're aware of these, then maybe you are wrongly excluding man-made features and missing some amazing potentials. I've always embraced these subjects since day one of taking landscapes. It started off first of all for me with the pylon as a potential strong silhouette against a setting sun. Their bold graphic outlines are ideal as a simple shape. The saturated colour of a typical sunset acting as an amazing backdrop then. Yes, back when I did shoot sunrises or sunsets of course. Living in a typical UK town back then, these were in my nearest landscape location, a place within walking distance of home, and these views happen to include pylons. So, do I embrace them or hate and curse them and therefore not take a picture? Well, of course, I was a beginner photographer. I was practicing and so I learned to embrace these eyesores and make them into positives. So from that, I never saw them as eyesores again. I accepted them as part of the landscape and made the most of them whenever they blighted my view. My next embrace of these so-called blots then was power stations. Inspired by the work of photographer Michael Kenner, I visited a few power stations around the country and attempted to capture the cooling towers as key subjects. These I could see as ideal subjects to shoot on a sunny day with a long exposure. Here, with the aid of an ND filter, I wouldn't blur cloud, but instead the steam emitted from the towers. Here then, these rising giants became the main subject. What else are you going to shoot on a clear day? Nowadays, I actively seek out pylons and welcome them when I discover a view containing them. A view perhaps that may not even have been a potential picture without them. There are certain landscape views where there is no natural interest, no natural beauty, or perhaps no mountains to include. In the UK, these places are referred to as Norfolk. Places and landscapes therefore you could easily walk or drive by and not take a picture. Yet now for me have become a place to stop and get the camera out. The same applies to wind turbines too. It's all part of accepting and appreciating every subject out there. I love taking pictures and so I don't stop when Mother Nature has run out of ideas. The way I see it is, if I can make a picture out of these man-made elements, then I'm practicing. I'm improving my photography. I'm making the most of whatever I'm presented with. Give me an eyesore and I'll try and give you a different way of viewing it. It's a challenge, therefore. Now, as many of you will know, I appreciate the urban landscape too, as much as I do the rural one. I can see the beauty in the landscape designed by man as one Mother Nature has had her hands on. I do love shooting in the rural landscape, but I love shooting in cities too. Maybe this gives me the upper hand then, the advantage, the willingness then to appreciate these harder edge landscapes. If it means I'm shooting locations ones other photographers dismiss, then I win in my book. As I've said before, I don't just need beautiful views to create photographs that please me. I accept and appreciate all views. Those pretty views are pretty easy. Anyone can do those. But faced with a landscape laced with pylons and eyesores, well, that's a more challenging view to shoot. And I don't shoot sunrises or sunsets for the same reason. Too pretty. And how could I take credit for those colours in my pictures? That's an all too easy way to get likes for a result. Capture that same location on a dull cloudy day to the same admiration, and then you've achieved something more, I think. So these pylons add lines and graphic shapes to an empty landscape. Cooling towers, the ones left of course, are amazing subjects in their own right. Telegraph poles can knit fields together, as it were, in a rather beautiful way. I view these man-made features just like a line of trees then. You embrace these strong, dynamic, natural giants for their shape and form. They're accepted parts of our landscape and therefore our pictures. We see them as beautiful subjects. Well, maybe it's time to accept and appreciate pylons and telegraph poles in the same way. Your creative images could be used to convince the masses. It's up to me and you to reveal the beauty of these so-called eyesores. So I love eyesores. I photograph eyesores. Or should I say, I willingly photograph these beautiful things. Do you? Well, as you probably know, I don't do sponsored ads in my videos. I turned them all down. But I will say, if you need a photography subscription, if you do want to support this channel and get something in return, then my E6 subscription is the place to go. Okay, next time, well, 5 beginner mistakes you must avoid. That's the video. But come on, you know me by now. It won't be as obvious or straightforward as that. Quite the opposite, in fact. Curious? Well, I'll be here. Will you?